Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of MUP Halo, the only Halo Flashpoint show where one of the hosts is very sick with the flu, and the other one is in Britain. So, I'll let you guess which one. With me, as always, I'm Wiki Dave, and with me, as always, is James-005. How are you doing, James?
I'm good, thank you. I'm certainly better than if I had the flu.
Yeah, I've had a really rough month. If people that do follow MUP notice that the release has kind of gone down quite a lot. Over the last week, I've had a lot of health issues, especially with my heart, and also I got the flu last week, and I ended up in hospital and all that fun stuff. So luckily, I'm bouncing back now, and luckily, we're going to be talking about something that actually just arrived for me personally yesterday, but James has had his hands on it for a while, and that's the new Rise of the Banished. So that's with Wave 3 of Halo Flashpoint. That's right to say, James, you've had it for a while, eh?
Yeah, just a little bit over a week. It arrived pretty promptly with me, so I've had about a week to dive into it, get through the content, play a few games, so we can give you our sort of not hot takes but lukewarm takes maybe as we go into this.
Yeah.
And hopefully, as you're sat there, yours is arriving now. So our aim is to kind of just do a little bit around, a little bit of a tour through what's in there, what you might want to look out for, and maybe some ideas for using. For starting to use that content and a few thoughts on it as well. But as I say, we're a week / 4 or 5 games into this expansion, so any kind of tactical or power level overview should be taken with a pinch of salt, I think.
Yeah, and the meta is something that is going to slowly evolve, and everyone's going to work out over the next couple of weeks, and it's all going to be who's going to call it out first and who's going to jump on it and who can prove it, really. So right now we're just really in the information finding stages, trying to play as many games as possible. But actually, on that note, before we dive fully into it, we should acknowledge that we're going to just be talking about the Rise of the Banish, the Defiance. I don't know whether we call it the Rise of the Banished expansion or the Defiance expansion. We're just going to be talking about this Wave 3 or these Wave 3 releases, mainly because there's not really any other news to really talk about in the world of Halo Flashpoint. Hi everyone, Wiki Dave in editor mode here. So it turns out 2 days before we were to release this episode, because we do record it in a week in advance, Mantic has just announced the next box set, you could say the next expansion, called First Feet into Hell, I believe it's called, which is the slogan for the ODST, which is the Orbital Drop Shock Troopers. So it looks like that is going to be the next expansion. We obviously don't cover that in this episode. Time zones suck. When it's James's morning, it's my evening and so forth, so we try and record these a bit in advance. So I do apologise that we don't go over that, but hopefully by the time we actually record the next one, which hopefully will be in a few weeks, or even a week, so we'll have a little bit more information, we can actually go over it. And it's cool that we see the orbital drop shock troopers, because they weren't actually in Infinite. So, and looking at the teaser at the moment, I'm recording this on the 31st my time. It hasn't actually, all the information hasn't been released yet. It looks like we are starting to bounce around the timeline and actually seeing a little bit more. A lot of people are referring to Buck, but if we were to stick with the modern day timeline or Infinite timeline, Buck isn't an ODST at the moment. So hopefully we're going a little bit back. We can get some of those characters on the table and we'll see what it is. But yeah, that's about it. I'm going to jump back out and let the rest of the episode, but all the reference to no news, it's kind of irrelevant now, so apologies. I'm feeling better though. The flu's gone. We don't know really what's coming. We know there's balance changes happening. We know that the season 1 kind of like that's going to kick in. I think soon. I think it's Wave 4 is like the end of season, or it's the beginning of season 1, right? How was it said again? I can't remember.
So this is season 0. The balance patch in October begins season 1. So broadly, you go through your kind of, I don't know what the Americans are doing. There is a UK kind of nationals at the end of September in London, and then there is that sort of ends, or pretty much ends season 1, and we roll straight into, ends season 0, we roll into season 1, with the balance patch at some point around October.
That's right.
So that's the next milestone.
So that would be, I think that line out with Wave 4 is when Season 1. So we don't really know what's coming with that. Only thing we do know is some balancing changes. Whether they're going to they use that kind of that Wave 4 kind of point of a bit of a reset, so there's not going to be any big releases, which is, we've kind of got. So we got with Wave 1, we obviously got the release of the Spartan Edition, the Recon Edition. Wave 2 was the War Games expansion. Wave 3 was this Defiance and Rise of the Banished. So it'd be interesting to see whether that trend continues, or maybe at the end of every season it's a bit of a reset and they don't have any releases. It's just more of a tidy up of things. This is really an unproven ground right now, so we don't actually know how they're going to approach it. So it's actually going to be quite interesting to see. And this will help with that possible longevity of the game. So, yeah, it'll be very interesting. So that's why we're not going to cover anything, because there's not really anything else to really talk about. Is that right to say? I would say, James.
I think there's enough contents in this big box that's landing on your doormat to talk about that. I think that's probably the best way to phrase it. We'll dive into the big box you've hopefully got in front of you, and we'll go from there.
I've dissected the box, and it's all in parts around me, but I get the point. So let's dive right into it. So, what was the first thing you wanted to go over about the app update? Do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it was more of just a piece of a header. What's really nice to see is the app has updated this week, right? So, Rise of the Banished, I think I was one of the first people to get hold of it through Mantic's through sort of normal pre-order channels from Mantic. But within a few days, that app has been updated. So all of the rules we're going to talk about are in the app. And I think that's that really kind of demonstrates the value of that app, is that ability to kind of push that information out. And it was quite nice to see we weren't waiting weeks and months for that information to hit the app, so people can play with the list builder, people can see the rules for themselves, and kind of go on from there.
Yeah, and I think it helps with the accessibility of new players entering the game, knowing that no one's going to be left out, knowing that there is an entry point that people can easily get into the game without trying to work out in the head, what do I have to get up to speed? At least all it's in one spot, and I think that's very useful, especially in modern day gaming. People don't really have the money, unfortunately, to buy all these multiple different packs just to get up to speed and up to the meta. So it's good to see that. I'm hoping that continues and we see more of that. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, go ahead, James. Sorry.
I think it's actually the first genuinely optional expansion if you're playing, right? Like in terms of sort of the main game, obviously you need the War Games expansion. You need to play the game properly, and then into this is a genuine, I think, optional expansion for you. If you don't want to play with the Banished, I don't think this is I don't think you need this, and I think that's what's quite interesting about this particular expansion is they aren't doing the kind of the X-Wing thing of you're going to need, or the Crisis Protocol thing of you're going to need everything. This is, this actually, if you have no interest in playing the Banished, you have no need of this box, which is a nice thing. I think it's good that we're not forcing players to pay more in these challenging times.
Yeah, so I mean that's a good point to hit on, is that this is a faction expansion, not a game expansion. So if you're getting this, you're just adding a faction to the game, rather than the game expanding in any way. So it's just pretty much just a different faction. You're not going to miss out on the game if you don't get it, and I think that's a very good point to hit, because some people don't like the Banished, and the models are quite large as well, which is interesting that they're keeping that canon feel as well. And a little actually heads up is that a few hours ago I did film an unboxing video, which will be released on our YouTube channel in a few days after this. So I think it'll be on the Saturday, and we're releasing this on the Thursday, which will show a little bit that scale. It's the first unboxing I ever did. Yes, it is awkward. I am an awkward person when you see me. But I did my best, and the camera's not that great. But if anyone wants to give me $1,000 camera, go nuts. But that's the best you got. So I just want to throw that out there if you do want to see what I was looking at. I actually did unbox it with a broken part. One of the figures actually were missing a part. Did you have that experience? Any issues with your box? Because I had one of the models. I can't remember which one it was. It was, I think it was, if I'm looking through my cards, I think it was one of the captains that had one of the little jetpacks missing.
I can't say that I did. My Atriox has a slightly bent, whatever you call his weapon, that's sort of bent to the point of, I think, like bending it back is going to put it at risk of snapping and needing to be pinned. But broadly, everything arrived in good quality with mine.
Well, my weapon's bent as well. I think that's just how the model is. I think the model was just
you
like,
can see
the hammer is a little bit bent.
Yeah, I mean, most of them are with PVC, and you straighten them out with some hot water. It's with Atriox specifically, mine. You can see discoloration in the material, and it looks like it's partially torn is the wrong word, but sort of developing a stress fracture on the sort of the joint between the weapon and his hand. I think it's actually at a point where bending it back is probably going to break it, which is a bit of a shame. But
yeah, it's a little bit flimsy. I just got mine from my storage real quick just to look at it. But yeah, I can see what you mean there as well. Yeah, I can see it's a little bit fragile. I have to be careful.
Broadly, these are gorgeous models, and the quality is slightly higher than. It's more of the quality of the models you'll have seen in the War Games expansion, which was a bit higher than the quality of the models we saw in kind of Recon and Spartan Edition, just in terms of the kind of the fidelity of the cast. So it's good to see that it's good to see that quality improvement. I mean, I'm still hoping at some stage we get the ability to kind of get multi-pose, resin or plastic down the line for those of us that want to play it, want to pay a premium for that. But certainly they're on the upper end of what they produced so far, and the models are gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous.
Well, they did show with Fireteam Phoenix that they're willing to produce those kind of models, so being able to pose them and so forth. So I got Fireteam Phoenix as well, and that I haven't assembled that obviously yet, and that's going to be a lot of fun to do. A lot of these models I am kind of banking a little bit for after I get my heart transplant, to have something to do when I'm stuck inside for so long. So I don't want to rush too much in the on the painting or assembling. On that note, I should mention though, because I saw this today, is Army Painters released an article about how to paint them. Similar how they did and I don't think it was an actual. This one's an actual video, but they did a video on how to paint Master Chief. They've done a similar one for how to paint the brutes as well, which I'm actually going to try and follow, because I followed their guide for Master Chief. Mine came out pretty well just based off that, and I'm not the best painter in the world, so I'd suggest anyone out there that is interested, look that up. The Army Painter guide there. They've got to break down the paints to use, and it looks like if you want to get what you see in the box, it's a good strategy to use. So I'm really looking forward to it. I think all these models, as you said, are gorgeous, and I think it's a really good precedent or a good insight of what we could expect from later models, like if we start looking into other Coven species like grunts or jackals or anything like that. And I'm really excited to see where we go from here. It's going to be exciting.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right, so let's dive right into the new scenarios, because that's something that was a little bit. We knew what was coming. So, what's your insight with the scenarios there, James?
Yeah, so there's two. What's good to see is I don't think these were particularly spoiled, so we'll lead out with these. So there's kind of you get a new game mode, Big Team Battle, which we're sort of going to gloss over. I haven't spent any time with it, and it's not. It feels sort of fairly. What's the right word? Kind of, it feels like a bit of an appendix to everything else. So, if that's your thing, that's fantastic. That's a lot closer to being kind of house rules and sort of, or an official form of house rules. So we'll kind of move on from there. We get the new we do get the new scenario VIP. This one has already got an organised play version, which just sorts the scoring out for organised play. I've had a chance to get this on the board. I think it's a fantastic scenario. There is an official sort of setup map for it in the organised play set of the rules. It plays really well. I really like this mode, and it's going to make a great addition, taking us up to seven organised play scenarios now. And what's great about having a good number of organised play scenarios is it makes each event a bit different, and it allows for list building options as players tailor their experience, players tailor their list to the experience at an event. So I think that's really good. And for your home games, it just gives you another game to play. And this one's a nice, sort of a nice take on a more aggressive, combat-orientated game, which in turn will mean events playing this and Slayer will have interesting ideas in terms of needing to be a bit more killy. So it's I think that's a really good addition. And in the game I play with, it works really well.
Did you win?
I don't remember. I don't think I did. I don't remember. We were practicing. And playing both the scenario and playing with the new models. And I think I was in the game, but I don't think I won, which is fine.
Oh, okay. But you don't look to win when you're trying something out, so it makes sense. It'll be interesting to see. I'll be interested to see if these scenarios are played in a competition kind of setting as well. They are fairly new scenarios, and I'm not sure how much play testing has gone down in it. How do you see it in a competitive environment? Do you see it being utilized, or do you see it as more of a bit of a different scenario to play, but you can't see it really in the competitive kind of tournament setting?
VIP will. I can absolutely see VIP working really well. I think the others are aren't aligned to the way organised play needs to score. Attrition looks like fun. That's the other sort of normal scenario in there. But that won't score in a way that would work for organised play. But no, VIP I think is already trailed for at least one event as a new scenario, and is certainly something that I'll be looking to play a bit of, because I think it really opens up some interesting tactical options. So I like VIP a lot. I think for organised play, I think that's in a really good space.
Okay, fair enough. So there's two. I don't know if you'd say two others, but the one other one that's in the booklet itself is attrition or elimination. What's your feeling on that one?
It looks like fun, right? I think that looks like a fun scenario. It's not for organised play, and therefore my personal interest in it is somewhat limited. But it looks like perfectly fine as sort of a local game night game mode. Similarly, I think Big Team Battle again looks like a nice bit of fun. If you're going to be playing locally, I don't think it's necessarily one for organised play, but I think they're both perfectly good scenarios.
So just because you did touch on the last one, Big Team Battles is that third one I was referencing to. The big one in there's no respawns when it comes to Big Team Battle as well. And it does seem like a bit of a feeler to see, how this kind of works in the grand scheme of things. Because I do think Big Team Battle for the future of the game might be necessary because of all those demands, what people want in Halo. They want vehicles, they want bigger battles as well. So it'll be interesting to see. Big Team Battles will be interesting one to see if it does evolve and change that rule set, because I've got a feeling if we're ever going to get to that dream scenario that a lot of people are kind of pushing towards and kind of want, they're going to have to make it work. And currently it won't work with the current rule set that we have.
Yeah, I think I don't want to spend too long on this one, having not played it. I think this is Big Team Battle in name, but not necessarily in feel. For me, having I'm on record various times on this podcast saying that was sort of my Big Team Battle was my favourite mode of multiplayer Halo. I don't think this is that, which is partly probably why I'm a bit disinterested in it. But it's sort of, it's always nice to have more options for more people to explore, because not everybody is a tournament junkie like me. People want to play different games in different ways. So opening these options up for people, I think is fantastic. I would have thought. I don't think Big Team Battle uses multiple boards, does it? It uses a standard arena sort of setup. Is that right?
It does. It doesn't state it. Do you mean with Flashpoint, or do you mean in general?
Yeah,
this one. It just doesn't mention anything like that.
Yeah, it's weird to kind of double the points but not double the play space. Given as well, comes in a box that comes with a second board. So at the point the point you're breaking this out, you have two boards. But it is what it is. It's a nice it is what it is. I don't want to spend too much more time on the scenarios, but I did want to just call out how much fun VIP is and well worth exploring, because I'm conscious it's at the back of the book and not the thing that's been kind of heavily trailed. So I think that's well worth it.
It's a start.
Spending time on.
Yeah, the reason why I bring it up, it's a start, and having the only way that the game can evolve is to start trying those new things. So that's just a little thing to note, and for people to try out, because the more voices that we have on that, the more the game will evolve, and Mantic is very good at taking that feedback and trying to run with it the best they can. So which is what we all want. All right, so we'll move on to your next thing you have on your list there, James. You got a grenade counters, which I do have a question about that. So what do you want to talk about specifically with the grenade counters?
It's a lovely little quality of life thing that there's finally official counters for the Sangheili to throw their grenades and be able to flip them over to say they've been thrown, and that's just a nice little quality of life thing. So I didn't want that to go unmarked, because I'm all about kind of quality of life, both for the player and for sort of for the collector. So in game that makes it a little easier, and it's just a nice little thing to talk about or to mention. What was your question, Dave?
So that's you're referring to the X at the back, because I'm pretty sure there weren't X's on the back of them, were there?
So there are X's on the back of the. So these are brand new counters that were there to represent the grenade that's on your profile card. So if you've got a Sangheili mercenary that starts with a plasma grenade, these are there so that you can use that little counter to track whether or not you've thrown that specific Sangheili's grenade by flipping it over to an X. So it's there to track that. The same is true as a lot of the brutes have kind of built-in grenades. For the other kind of usable items, there is no, they haven't historically put X's on the back, which does make it a bit fiddly because you have to move them around the board. So again, it's just nice to see the design evolving.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to mention, is that I hadn't missed anything, because all of my ones didn't have X's, but I may have got like one of the first versions that maybe didn't have it. But yeah, you're right. The X's on the back are definitely a big quality of life, and it makes sense, right? It makes perfect sense to put them there, and it doesn't take much effort to do it as well. So it was a nice little surprise to see them adding that.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. So yeah, that's another thing, a little note that's inside the box that we didn't actually expect. The next one is terrain. So what's your feelings on the terrain that you got? So I guess just to cover it, the terrain we did get was the new cardboard pieces, similar to what we got in the Spartan edition and the Recon edition, depending on whatever edition you got, because that was the UNSC stuff. This is the Banished cardboard terrain, and we also got a gorgeous new board map, which the map itself, or the mat, it actually looks a little bit different than the original two. What's your feelings on it there, James?
I mean, I like it. I've had a chance to play on a board made up of two sets of this terrain, and it plays really well. You can build the organised play maps with it, so you can have that variation. There's some really interesting shapes tactically in there, particularly in the scatter terrain, and also in fairness, in the larger terrain as well. It creates some very interesting kind of shapes, and kind of that creates a load of tactical options that you don't get out of the Spartan edition. So I think it's really nice to see this terrain come together and be part of the game. So really enjoying that terrain, and it works really well. The scatter is a lot chunkier than in the Spartan edition. You can really see and feel the difference. So really nice terrain. Although I haven't assembled my own copy yet.
I would say better. Yeah. I've set up my cardboard terrain, and I would say it's definitely an upgrade on what we got originally with the Spartan Recon edition. There's a lot more pieces to it. It feels a little bit more complicated, but it definitely looks a lot better. It will be in my unboxing video. There'll be a little jump to it, but I would say it's definitely a step up. It's definitely an improvement. And for those that are kind of a bit confused about that, just get it for yourself, build it yourself. You'll completely understand it when you compare the two, because it's definitely a step. It's definitely an upgrade. Cool. All right, so let's move on to the pickup weapons now. So we've got, I think, 5 new weapons? Oh, I haven't got. Where's my list? We've got the shock rifle.
it's 4 and
Four.
it's 4 and then a new version of shock rifle. I should say we're not going to deep dive all of the weapon profiles. We're not going to read the cards to you. We're going to do this again with the brutes. We're not going to do a full kind of rundown or a hot take on each one. We're going to talk in general terms. So, but in terms of the new kind of pickup weapons, yes, we add 4 more to the game. They are of, as you expect, a varying quality. The interesting thing is they changed the shock rifles. The shock rifle is no longer long and it's no longer suppression. So it won't automatically pin somebody in whatever cube it's fired at, or everybody in whatever cube it's fired at. But it has gain blast and sniper scope, so it's a bit more easy to fire, and potentially a little bit more deadly than it was. But will not how can I have the auto pin? So it loses a lot in terms of its utility for oddball. But it's interesting to see that one changed. It is a weapon that the brutes are equipped with. One of the brute snipers has that weapon to start with. The others are a sort of a mixed bag. I do like the brute shot as a pickup weapon. It's combination melee and proper ranged weapon, which is nice.
Yeah, and we've also got the Skewer, the Ravager, obviously the Brute Shot, the Mangler, the Sentinel Beam, the Mauler, and the Disruptor. So those are all the new weapons that are out there, which are all, I think they're all on one of the characters or another. Pretty sure.
Yeah, I think they're all. Yeah. The Brute Shot isn't. Nobody I believe spawn. Nobody's equipped with a Brute Shot in the models, but that is a weapon you can both get from pickups on the board, and it's also a weapon that you can purchase.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how those play out. I'm especially interested to see how the Brute Shot plays out on the field. That will be an interesting one. Cool. So, what weapon pool are we using in game now? That's what the question that you've posed. What do you mean by that, John?
I've got to start writing these in questions you can ask me rather than do my kind of train of thought notes going in. So, I think there is a little interesting thing. This is the first. This is the first sort of optional expansion, right? Because all of your weapon pickups to date have either been in the Spartan or Recon edition, which you can't play the game without, or in War Games, which, again, you can't play the modern game without, right? You can't go to an event without. This is optional, increases the pool up to 19 individual pickup weapons, because the shock rifle is now there twice. I'm presuming we don't use 2 shock rifles. I think that's just one to replace the other. Yeah. It's getting a bit prohibitive to cart all of these round, and what is the expectation? I think organised play just needs an update with what is the expectation of the item pool that you're playing with, because if I turn up to an event I don't have Rise of the Banished, I have a different pool of weapons. I could turn up potentially not how, am I just playing with the 10 that excludes the War Games one? Am I playing with some combination thereof? There's a really nice opportunity to open this up into list building somehow, by kind of having you also bring a specific weapon pool that you generate in some way, and then, there's the variable on whose weapon pool you're using. It's possible to set the game up in such a way that actually whenever you pick up a weapon, it's just one of your weapons. There's a couple of easy ways to do that with the kind of tokens. You could just use the weapon spawn tokens, flip them over when they've got a weapon on them, and then when they run over, someone picks up the weapon of their choice and flip from their pool and pick it back. There's lots of different ways to do it. I'd be interested to see that evolving, but I do think there needs a bit of clarity now, either at an event level or at sort of at a central level on what is the pool of weapons we should be bringing to events, because it's starting to get a bit prohibitive to carry around and randomize 19 items. Especially like if you lose an item token, you can't really replace. They're not as easy to replace. I certainly don't suggest anyone brings, because I think there's 2 copies of each one. Theoretically, players might have sort of 10 from the base set, 5 from the expansion, and another sort of 8 from this. It's getting very. It's kind of getting. You shouldn't really have to count 30 items around. it's too much and it's cumbersome during gameplay and setup. So I just a little bit of clarity on what's expected there, and the opportunity to add more interesting choices and list building there when they clarify that. So I think that's just something to watch out for. And if you're running or going to an event, it is worth checking or just being cognizant of what are the sort of the rules around what the pool of items should be. Different events will handle it differently, but it's just one to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think you make a good point, and also it's going to become a bigger problem the longer the game goes on as well. That pool is only going to get bigger, so now's a really good time of setting the precedent or just how they're going to handle like what to bring. When you come into these tournaments, or because if you have the expectation of bringing all that along with you, it's really just going to be another barrier that people are just maybe I'll play something else. It's just another thing they have to remember, especially as you said, you lose it. And they're not exactly big tokens. They don't have little beacons on it that you can easily find them if you drop them. So you make a very, very good point there. Cool. We'll move on to equipped weapons and grenades. We kind of sort of already covered it, but anything specific you want to go through there?
Yeah, we're not going to go through all of the sort of there's eight weapons, 8 new equipped weapons that you can attach. We're not going to sort of cover those. So I mean, I think this sort of the one, the brute shot's quite disappointing. It's sort of twice it's basically one side is a concussion rifle, the other side is a sort of a low quality melee weapon, and sort of somehow it costs double the points of the concussion rifle at 14. So yeah, I mean, if you want to find out how a boot shot plays, it'll be because you've found one on the battlefield. Nobody's paying 14 points for one of these. Which is just a bit of a shame. The melee weapon isn't horrible. It's just not worth 7 points. It's not as good as the knife. So if you've got 9 or 11 points spare, you can have a concussion rifle and a knife, which would be a damn sight better than a brute shot at 14 points. But there you go. So I think my kind of top pick for being a very interesting weapon out here, weirdly, is the Disruptor at 3 points. It's the cheapest rapid-fire weapon available, which makes it tactically really interesting and is as cheap as an item. So I can absolutely see using a Disruptor if you're going to something you're going to have to play oddball. It's a very cheap way of giving somebody rapid-fire, which is very good in oddball. It's a very cheap way of, say, giving your CQB a chance to pin someone before assaulting them. Or give your elite a chance to pin a Spartan so they can't be snap fired. There's lots of interesting use out of that item at a very cheap price. I think previously 5 points is the cheapest rapid fire weapon previously, so that in of itself I think is pretty interesting.
Yeah, it's a very good point. Yeah, it's going to be interesting because the annoying thing of not being able to go to tournaments, I'm really seeing everything online about builds and so forth. So I'm really interested, and if anyone out there is listening, is just to send us through your lists of how you're going to approach, you could say this, Wave 3 phase of the game. Show us your builds, show us your list, and we can actually start to see some of the outcomes and seeing how they're actually going to be played. I mean, there's one thing, making the list is another thing of actually playing that list and make sure you play it well. So it's always taken with a little bit of grain of salt. But yeah, I'd be extremely interested to see anyone out there who want to share your list. Put in the comments below or jump into a Discord and share it around. I'm interested to see what people's approaches are here, because I haven't seen too many at the moment. I've seen yours. But I haven't seen too many more, so I'm genuinely interested. Cool. All right, so let's go to we'll jump into the special rule that you got concussive special rule.
Yeah. So concussive is the new special rule. Very quickly, just for people who haven't seen it, concussive. If it's on a weapon, if the weapon gets more successes than an opponent, it will pin them. That works on both shoot or melee. I think this is currently currently it's only on Atriox, but concussive is sort of the new special rule. So just before you spend any time rummaging in your any time rummaging in your rulebook mid game, if you're playing with Atriox, when basically if he hits someone, rolls more successes than them, they get pinned, and that's just useful new ability to have.
Yeah, concussive is going to be an interesting one, especially for is it capture the flag? Yeah,
Oddball.
capture the flag.
Very useful in
Oddball. That's it.
No, it won't force an oddball drop. What it is really useful for though is in melee. Because if you hit someone in melee and pin them, they then have to spend one of their next actions standing up. At which point, if you're still in the cube, you get to hit them over the head, potentially pin them again. And if they stand up, they can't then fight you because fight is a long action. So they then have to leave the cube, which means you get to hit them potentially for a third time. So this is a really powerful effect on a melee weapon, which is going to one of the things that make Aatrox pretty brutal when he gets into combat with you.
Yeah, so Aatrox, because the Chainbreaker, his hammer, and that's how he gets that. That's an R1. Actually, concussive is actually close combat and R1. Interesting. Yeah. Okay. That's going to be
very good.
And one thing we should mention: Aatrox has got 8 health points. 8. So that's quite a lot. It's he's quite a brute. And that's with two shield as well. So he can take a lot of a beating, that Aatrox. So that's going to be very interesting to see how he plays on the field. All right, next one, brutes. So you put how to pronounce. I'm not going to pronounce the brute name because I can't. Honey or whatever. I don't know.
I don't know, and I've got no clue. I was hoping, as resident lore expert, you would know. I have no idea how to pronounce it, so I'm going to call it brute.
I can barely pronounce your name right. I don't know what you expected from me. But no,
I've yet to meet anyone that can correctly pronounce Gungnir. And given they're a fairly common model in the game, I'm not expecting people to do much better with the bears, to be honest with you.
I'm just on brute. Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it's just someone that.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's just someone that tried to spell that got told at Bungie when they were creating the brutes of come up with an alien name, and they just said Julie really wrong, and that's pretty much just how they came up with it. Julia Honey.
I wonder if the J is like I wonder if you're supposed to go with a more kind of Norse pronunciation of it, possibly. I could almost see it be. Anyway, I'm not going to butcher it, but if anybody does know how to pronounce that word,
you can tell us, but I don't know how well of a good job we do in the future.
No,
how about in the next episode, I will say it. I will do my research and I will try and say it properly, and we'll see how that goes.
I don't know. How old is that, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, I've been made fun of on other podcasts about how I pronounce stuff on the Kings of War lore podcast that we run as well. I get made fun of because of my pronunciation. So let's see how that goes. But oh well. Anyway, let's go to the strengths of the brutes. That's what you want to discuss. There you go, the melee side of things. Yeah. So what's your insight?
We should talk about probably the sort of the quality of the characters generally. I think so overall, I'm sort of 4 games in. I don't want to do too. I don't want to be too kind of definitive on my views, right? Because things can change. I think broadly, just want to sort of touch on the strengths and weaknesses. I think the core strength, of these models is the way that they interact in melee, with imposing and with knockback in melee in all cases. They hit really effectively in melee, and particularly, it's like most of them functionally will act as though they've got a gravity hammer. They will hit, they will displace, which is incredible for scenario play. If they displace you into a wall, there's a really good chance you get pinned by the wall, which, as we talked about with concussive, makes your life very difficult for the rounds. If they get you into melee as a Spartan, you are going to be in real trouble. You can actually just get very easily kind of locked up in melee, and it can be quite difficult to get out if you're not a melee Spartan or yourself. And even then, reasonably tricky. Sometimes I think you've just got to chance your arm and try and run away, which is high risk, but potentially the way to go. So when they get into melee, these things are absolute monsters, and that's before you get imposing comboed with any particularly powerful melee weapons that might be out there. That's a sort of the That's the kind of core strengths of the brutes. Their weaknesses, I mean, they struggle. They do struggle taking damage, right? They are. Their defenses are lower. When you do some very rough maths on their defenses, they are effectively 1 to 2 points of damage easier to kill. Particularly once you adjust for the on largely 1 or 2 points easier to kill. Once you adjust for some of them being a bit easier to hit than Spartans, certainly. They do take damage. I mean, what's interesting is you fire a concussion rifle at a Spartan, very rarely does anything. You fire a concussion rifle at one of these bears, it will it will chip damage pretty reliably in my experience. So they do take damage. They've got more wounds, but they will take damage at an appreciable rate. And then you get they are incredibly slow, which worries me from an objective play standpoint. Being movement 1-2 as opposed to 2-3 is a massive detriment. I do wish slow in this game meant move 2, sprint 2, and then normal speed was move 2, sprint 3, rather than slow seeming to mean walk 1, sprint 3, which just tactically makes their lives very difficult. So I think it can be very interesting how these play out. I mean, we'll talk in the next section about the build, but I think for now, I think delivering these guys safely into melee is kind of going to feels pretty critical to their success.
Yeah. Interesting take. And you have noted their weaknesses being everything else. So, I mean, because I've noticed that, and obviously I haven't played it yet, only 2 of the new units don't have energy shields. The rest of them do, and they have quite a lot of health. So why are you saying everything else is the weakness for them?
So, I mean, I think I focused on the main 2 weaknesses. I mean, I think the thing with defense is there's a lot of weapons out there that are ESD-1 or AP-1 or both, right? So, quite often when you're hitting a Spartan, what that means is you will, the other point of armor, the second point of armor, or the second shield will do something. You hit someone with an ESD AP-1 weapon that's one of these brutes. Most of them have at best 1 shield, one armor. Some of them have no shield, some of them have no armor. I think that the captains do have 2 shields, 2 armor, and a chunk of wounds, so they are significantly tougher than a Spartan. But as is obviously Atriox, but the brutes themselves having, the majority of the brutes, you hit them with an AP-1 ESD-1 weapon, they have no defense, right? Like, they are taking the damage you have rolled. So, an ESD-1 AP-1 weapon will just cut into them. And obviously lethal is quite a prevalent keyword. Now, it's less effective into Spartans because you actually have to get through to do damage. You're more likely to get through to the damage element of the brute, and therefore lethal becomes a relevant keyword way more often. So there are weapons with like very high ESD or very high AP obviously are losing some of their combat effectiveness shooting a brute because some of where they would put their point. If you think about damage output, right, you can roughly think of the damage output of a weapon as adding its lethal, its ESD, and its AP together to say like how much does this cut through before it does to do its first point of damage or to do sort of additional points of damage. There's a way of looking at weapons. We talked about this in our weapons episode, where you go. It takes a fully healthy Spartan dies to 8 hits, basically. You roll 8 more successes than your opponent, that healthy Spartan dies. Thinking about a Mark 7 or a Brawler or any other kind of Recon Edition Spartans. If you so you can sort of express the killing power of a weapon as how many successes more than my opponent do I need to roll to kill a healthy Spartan, based on sort of mostly adding up the AP, the ESD, and the lethal together. Maximum of 2 for the AP and the ESD, just to sort of go roughly how much does it slice through. So something like a sword kills a Spartan in 3 more hits. A fully healthy Spartan dies to an energy sword in 3 hits. The problem the bears have when you look at that model is, it takes a lot less ESD or AP to get through to the body. So if you hit a Spartan with 4 hits, say, fully healthy Spartan with 4 hits, you do 0 damage, right? They've still got their armor. and they've still got their, and their shields will start regenerating, right?
Yeah.
You hit a bear for 4 points of damage, right? It's got one, optimistically, most of them have one wound, one shield and one armor, right? So now you've got 2 going through. So now they now have permanently lost 2 wounds until they have to respawn. So they are more prone to taking damage because their defenses are stacked to just being a pile of wounds, and they are, and therefore they sort of, because they're more prone to taking damage, they'll take more incremental damage throughout the game. Things that won't damage a Spartan, like a concussion rifle. It's unlikely a concussion rifle round generally damages a Spartan. You can't rely on it doing any damage. It will regularly damage a bear because the bear has 2 less defense against it, and no real, there's no defense left after you take its keywords into account. So, I do think I think where you're going to end up is they are going to take more damage because their defenses are stacked to the end of kind of the process. You do shields, then you do armor, then you do wounds. That means lethal is more of an active keyword because it will come into play more often. So it will do extra damage, and they will just naturally take more damage than a Spartan because of the lower armor, lower shields. So that's sort of the worry they've got. And then when they respawn, because they move 1, they don't have the flexibility to respawn very effectively, and we've seen that on Zvezdas. Now, that doesn't mean I think they have no game. What that means is I think that there's some obvious weaknesses there, and their obvious strength when you look at them is their melee. I'm not particularly excited by... they all have a grenade, right, which does help.
Yeah.
But I'm not explicitly excited. Most of them have a grenade. I'm not explicitly excited by any of their weapons, right? There is no kind of grenade launcher here. There is no Mark 7 assault rifle. There are MA40 assault rifle. There is no, there are not many guns here that you look and go, oh, well, that's why I'm taking this guy, right? Right. The guns are fairly low impact in a lot of cases, and you're kind of coupling that up with kind of slow movement and easy to take damage. So you've got to get them into melee. That's the core thing is run into melee with the enemy. You get them up close, and they will shred people in melee. They absolutely shred you in melee. But you can't. You've got to get there first, and that's the big worry for them.
Interesting. I might actually just play brutes now, just because you've actually sold me on it. Because initially I wasn't going to play them, but now I'm actually, because that's kind of my playstyle as well. I like to get really hand and close combat as well. So, all right, interesting. So then we'll jump right into the builds after all that. So you'll take this one because I am not sure what you mean by points. Actions VIPs or VPs.
So I did a sort of so there's 3 kind of. So I'm going to just what I want to do with this section really quickly is talk about what I want to do really quickly is talk about talk about kind of some potential builds, some ways you can approach building a list. I'm not going to run through actual lists. I'm going to talk in general terms and leave people to explore. The sort of the thing to think about when you're building a list, right? Though is what I'll call is value exchange. So you start with a normal game 200 points, and you need to get to a number of VPs, which in competitive play is 18, but depending on your scenario, maybe something else, right? So your aim is to turn 200 points into a number of victory points, right? And probably some achievement points in organised play, but essentially you're looking for an outcome. And you do that so that there's a lens through which you can look at it and go, the player that more effectively turns their 200 points into victory points will win the game. So you do this by sort of turning those 200 points into models, which turn into actions, which turn into victory points. And so you can either have, where you get to is you spend your points to either have better quality of actions or a higher volume of actions than your opponent, which allows you to score more victory points. Again, this is quite abstracted, but the principle is there to sort of say, okay, so when we're looking to build a list, you can think about that with the lists today, right? So today, the sort of standard 4-wide Spartan list leverages action quality to some extent, but primarily leverages sort of volume of actions by generating a lot of orders dice and using that high volume of orders dice using orders dice to take more actions, right? And occasionally boost the quality of the action. Similarly, Master Chief turns, a Master Chief based list uses Chief's special order, and again, it works through orders dice, but it's sort of generating a higher quality of actions. It will generally take less actions than a 4-wide list, but it will have a higher quality of action through Master Chief because he can compound his actions by using multiple orders dice. So those are kind of the two routes today. The current elite list that sort of this kind of tends to run 3 elite and try to work from a quality of action standpoint by sort of having sword elites, having kind of having speed, because they don't have a lot of access to orders dice. But they do have high quality actions in their grenade throws and in their swords. So they try to leverage that plus a higher volume of items. And so I think that's just useful when we start to think about about brute lists, and how do we build banished lists as we go into it. Did that make any kind of sense? I'm conscious that's a bit waffly.
It was a little bit waffly, but I managed to follow along in the end. You reined it in. It's interesting because you're definitely the expert when it comes to here. So a lot of this time I'm just listening and just kind of learning and even taking little notes here. So yeah, it definitely makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, and this is a lot of that is kind of quite theoretical, but it's useful to think of. So when we look at brutes, their strengths probably aren't in a lot of cases in the action quality. So we're looking to generate more actions, right? So there's 3 probable kind of approaches I've started to see, or 4 approaches I've started to see people take. So we'll sort of start with kind of probably the easiest, the kind of, I think a lot of people are taking the route, and I've played against this a few times, sort of Atriox and the 3 bears, right? You wind up with a 4-wide Atriox list that can quite easily have 4 orders dice, 2 of which are coming from Tactician. You can get a couple of grapples in there. You've got 4 models, and you are, provided you can find special orders on your orders dice, you're functionally unpinnable, which makes your life a lot easier playing into Spartans who love to pin you. Which means sprint is pretty much always live for most of these. So sprint 3 is on board for a number of your models. That seems to certainly be interesting. It's it's got a higher action quality because you're immune to pin, and it's got kind of a good number of actions. It allows you to overcome some of your speed weakness through Atriox as orders dice, or special order. So that's a distinct possibility, as something to explore. I think you can start to talk about wide lists. You can get 5 wide. You can get 5 models in a list, including a sword elite now, or 5 slightly higher quality brutes. But you can that is an interesting route because it gives you more bodies, therefore more actions, and the sword elite is no slouch. And then there's also kind of mixed lists with kind of 2 brutes, 2 elites, which allow you to sort of leverage the brutes for some extra bodies, but the quality of action from the elites, that's interesting. And I have seen some people sort of 3 wide with kind of sword elite, the captain, bears, and then some other stuff, which would be a very tough list and very good in Slayer. So I think those are kind of the 4 routes worth exploring. If you're starting out on your banished journey, sort of have a feel what appeals to you. Do you like kind of wider lists or taller lists? Fewer better models, more kind of cheaper models. Do you want does pinning really annoy you, and therefore you want to play Atriox? There's lots of options in there to explore, and I'd be interested to see what the kind of dominant or best build sort of starts to come out of the Banished looking like.
Yeah, and for the record, he actually did put on the show notes Atriox and the 3 bears. So that is now an official...
I'm practicing that.
Yeah, it's an official build type is Atriox and the 3 bears. So I'm going to go with that one. That's going to be my build. I'm going to see how that goes. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting. I think we are in such a fresh period of the game right now, so it's going to be very interesting to see what comes up on top, and how the meta is going to evolve, because I think a lot of people have a lot of theories, and I think now we're going to get some games under everyone's belts, and it'll be interesting to see, especially the other podcasts, their opinions on it, like Truth and Reconciliation. I think they're going to be a very interesting to listen to as they do their journey through it, and I think it's exciting over the next few weeks and months of how the game's going to change.
Yeah, and there are events coming up, so we'll report back on how it looks like the Banished are doing, and we'll see what we can find out for you as that becomes a bit clearer. I didn't want to just spam people with lists. I could have written 4 lists for this and put them in the show notes, but I think I don't want to lead the witness. I want you guys to go out and explore and find what works for you, and I'll certainly be having a look around to see what works for me.
Yeah, and make sure you send them in to us as well. We'll over the next few weeks and months, or whenever we do episodes, it'll be, if we have enough different experiences out there and different lists, we could actually do a whole episode of just going through other people's lists, calling them out, even showing images of your fire teams if you want. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, this is a community-driven show, and we'll talk about whatever you guys want us to talk about, and pretty much whatever we want to talk about. Now, there is one last thing noted on this the show notes there, James. Did you want to go through it? Because I don't know how you feel like, because it does. I'm not going to say exactly what it says under it, but it says, "While I'm complaining, ... Do you want to say it? All right.
No, I don't know if this needs to be a feature, its own feature. It would just be moaning about something.
We could make a theme song. We've got enough editors in the MUP community to help us with a bit of a theme song for the James Complain. I don't know. We'll make a fancy name for it.
And this is not me complaining about Mantic for a change, which is quite good. So no, this is a bit of a public service announcement, more than anything else, or kind of a general whinge at the tournament organising community. Which I'm a member, but I think can TOs, can you just think about list submission deadlines, please? Like the number of events I see where the list submission deadline now is like a week before the event. Like the list submission deadline is like, the event is on Sunday, list submission deadline is the Monday before. This is incredibly. It's unhelpful. It's not a huge deal, but it's unhelpful, right? So traditionally, tournaments have list submission deadlines of some point in advance of the tournament, so that a TO can, the long-suffering TO has to go through and check 100 people's 40k lists, which contain thousands of options across multiple army lists, which in turn is split across multiple books, with various kind of restrictions and comps in place to. And that would be potentially a month's work to go through 100 players, lists manually, right? That's not the world we live in today, right? The Halo Flashpoint app checks the list is legal for you and tells you it's legal. And it's very difficult, I think most experienced players can look at a list and go, this is a legal list or not. You don't need to tell people, you don't need to make people submit their lists, a week in advance, because it cuts down the amount of time people have to play with their lists, to enjoy playing with their lists and tinkering with them and playing a few games with their friends to figure out what the right list is. It actively detracts from the amount of time people can spend enjoying the game of Halo Flashpoint, because we put an administration deadline in that is well in advance of where it needs to be. Now, it makes sense to have a submission deadline. It makes sense to have a submission deadline that's not 20 minutes before the event begins, as I've played systems that do that, because then you're chasing players around. So it does make sense to give them sort of like 48 hours or something, like get your list in 48 hours in advance, so that so that your list is, so that you know what you're bringing to the event. You can make sure you've got the right models. If someone hasn't submitted a list, you can chase them down. But I do think like asking for list submission, as I'm routinely seeing, like a week before the event, is probably giving people a few less days of enjoyment out of kind of tinkering and thinking about these things, and requiring a bit more organisation on the part of your players for I'm not sure what benefit. Because, as I say, the computer is checking it for you. So you will get the lists automatically submitted. You don't have to kind of gather them. You don't have to check them. Like, that's all being done for you. So, again, it's just a bit of a plea. Can we have list submission deadlines be like 48 hours rather than kind of a week. Was just my small moan at the end of an episode. But look, it's not a big deal.
No,
But I think it will help people enjoy
it's
stuff.
valid. Yeah, no, you make very valid points and that as well, and I agree. I think with the current setup of Halo Flashpoint, with the companion app, with everything sorted, having such a runway, you could say, between when you have to submit them, when the deadline to submit them, versus when you actually play with them. I think it's a bit silly, especially in modern day. But I'll be interested if anyone out there has a counter argument to that, because I can't really think of a counter argument other than people, I don't know, just having more time to prepare from a TO point of view. But again, I mean, if everything is by the app, how much more time do you need if everything checks itself? So
it makes sense in other systems. I mean, it also, if you're playing something like Fantasy Battle or Kings of War, where you don't want people painting units at the last minute because they decided to change their list Friday the night before the event, right? Like that does make a certain kind of sense. I don't think I think it's a muscle memory of running TOing other games, which is perfectly, I get it, but I don't think it adds anything to Halo Flashpoint, given you need at best 5 models painted and the app is checking your list for you.
Yeah, and it helps that accessibility piece that we talk about of getting more people into the tournament, knowing that the deadline's not going to be so it's only 48 hours. You can get in there, especially life is complicated, so sometimes you just don't have time. So it'll be, I think, I agree. I completely agree.
To go to the event later as well. Like you can decide to go to a tournament later if you don't have to submit your list sooner, right? Like if you go to submit your list on Monday, you can't really then decide to go to the event on a Thursday or a Friday as easily as you could if that the submission was on a Thursday or a Friday. So I don't know. It's a minor point, but it's a good. Hopefully it's a good point. Sparked some thought. Cool.
Yeah,
I think that's us, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, that seems to be us there, James. I think we're all done for this. So I do apologise for the bit of the gap between the episodes. Things sometimes there's just not a lot to talk about. We just had to wait. So if anyone out there has anything you want us to talk about and bring up, feel free to reach out. We basically just do an episode when we have something to really talk about between me and James. And hopefully if we get some news and we get more listen. I mean, pretty much this show is really for you guys that do listen out there. So yeah, feel free to reach out there and let us know what's going on in your kind of Halo-verse, Halo Flashpoint universe and all that fun stuff. Any last words there, James? Because I'm running out of breath. I'm slowly dying on my end.
Well, no, just thank you for listening. Hope to see many of you at events soon. And enjoy your Rise of the Banished Box set. I'm looking forward to seeing what you're doing with them.
Yeah, and also a little reminder out there on our YouTube channel, I will be doing an unboxing video. I've actually already edited, I've started editing, I've already recorded it. We'll put it there. It'll be the first time we're doing some of that. Quality's not the best, but first time is always a bit choppy. So just let me know if that's something you guys would like to see in the future, especially how I'm going to be locked inside for a year or two. So it's going to be interesting. Anyway, we'll leave it there, and until next time, everybody, goodbye.